Okay, I've just got this up as a slide. The gentleman Phil Togwell is one of the team leaders for the entire UK for Prayer Space in Schools, and is also involved in 24/7 prayer. And I think this is a lovely quote that I'll read for the benefit of the tape, because obviously people who are listening won't be able to see it. It says, "Our aim is to inspire and equip churches to serve the spiritual and pastoral life of their local school communities. We believe that prayer spaces are a fantastic way to get started." And I have to say, I agree with that. So, thank you. Next one, John. This is a map of the UK, and just to let you see how many registered prayer spaces there were in schools last year. And actually, I think, to be honest, that is probably incorrect, because a lot of people are not actually registering when they do a prayer space, so their numbers are only based on the people who have actually registered, which I'll talk about a little bit about later on. Okay, so what exactly is a prayer space? Children and young people are naturally curious. Growing up raises lots of questions, some to do with their experience, both the good and the bad, and some to do with their sense of wonder at the universe we live in, and whether there's more to life than meets the eye. Many have an interest in the non-material aspects of life, the spirit or soul, and want to explore how they can develop their own sense of identity, of self-worth, meaning and purpose. Prayer spaces in schools enable children and young people of all faiths and of none to explore these in a safe, creative and interactive way through a variety of zones created especially for that purpose. A prayer space is usually a classroom-sized area that's been transformed for a few days, or if you're lucky, for a week. And it has a range of activities that encourage personal reflection and a variety of issues, the ones that you can see up here. So the children get the opportunity to reflect, to give thanks, to think and ask questions, to experience stillness, to examine their beliefs, consider and express hopes and views. And it's done in different schools in lots of different ways. The prayer spaces are usually run by a team of people from a local church, or as a service to the school, at the invitational and with the full cooperation of senior staff. And it's been welcomed and praised by head teachers and parents of faith and of no faith, as a valuable contribution to the RME that goes on in schools in Scotland. Okay. So, how do you go about it then? Well, the Prayer Space in Schools website, which you can get onto in no bother, just bung in Prayer Space in Schools into your computer, is an amazing site. I really can't say how useful it was in the beginning for me. So I'm going to give you kind of just a brief summary of the 9 steps that they recommend that you do when you're doing a prayer space. But there is so much, you'll be really bored of me saying this, there's so much more information on that website. So they've got 9 steps, and I'll just quickly whiz through them. The first one obviously is getting started. And the very most important thing when you're starting a prayer space is to pray, guys. Now I know this sounds really silly, but it's something that we sometimes wait till the end and we're all ready to go, and then we think, oh my goodness, I haven't done that yet. So I would say put that first, because prayer is just so important. It's so vital to allow God to be there right from the very start, and to guide you and to lead you in the direction that you need to go. It's a really good idea, again, to go onto the website. You'll see stories of people who have done them in various places, and they're really inspirational to give you ideas, and also just to give you some encouragement. There's also a DVD short clip that tells you about what Prayer Space is all about, and that's a really handy one if you're a person who has a tablet or an iPad to download and hang on to, because you can use that when you go into schools to show head teachers, or if it's within the church, to show church leadership what Prayer Space is about. You can visit a prayer space if you know of one that's going around. Someone said that you've helped with one, did you say you've helped with one? And did you find that useful for yourself? Yes. I think sometimes John came to visit my one because he didn't really have any idea of what Prayer Space was about, so it just gives you a good feel, because you can see, although the website's fantastic, you can see pictures, but it's just not the same as it is actually getting involved in it. So, next one. So, serving the school community. So, you may already have a relationship with folks in the school, and that's fantastic if you do, but you may not. And this is quite a difficult thing sometimes to put across to head teachers who perhaps have no concept whatsoever of what prayer space is, and think that maybe you're going to come in armed with a bookcase of Bibles to go shoving down the children's throats, turn them all into Christians, which of course is not the idea of prayer space. And so it's really, really important to be open with your team, be honest, to share what it is that you want to do, and to take along with you when you're meeting with folk. Take along some information from the website about prayer space. If you've got teachers who are interested in the educational part, there's things that you can bring for that. As I mentioned before, if you've got the prayer space clip, that's a really handy thing to show to people. Bring that along. And then also a proposal of what you would like to do, but obviously something that you're happy to be discussing with the senior staff. Next one. Now, this one, choosing a room. Choosing is really a bad word to use because you don't really get to choose a room in a school. Unfortunately, because the schools are all packed, fit to bursting, even sometimes the schools have had to give up their libraries to use these classrooms. I know of a school, for instance, that doesn't even have a gym hall and having to take the children to the gym on school. So you may not get the room that you would like to have, which would be a lovely big room that you could fill with things. But find somewhere that isn't too far out of the way, if possible, a space that you can make a special place, and a place that's not going to be somewhere that people will pass by. It has to be a welcoming space. Make it hospitable. Some people don't like clutter, some people do like clutter. I have to say, I love to have lots of things because as a visual learner, for me, going into somewhere where I can see lots of things and be interested in and find out a little bit more is a great way to draw me in. And I'm sure there are a lot of children who are visual learners too. We've made it a little bit dark today, but it's not as dark as it could be. The secondary schools that I've done some prayer spaces in, they would love it if it was like a disco cave. So the darker the better, as far as they're concerned. And they were always moaning that there was a bit of light coming in here, there, or whatever. But so do it as, create a mood room, a room that you know that children will feel safe in, comfortable in, and are happy to interact in. Another thing to say just before, sorry John, just before, one thing that can be a bit of a hindrance is if you're time and you have to take down and put up. Putting up a prayer space takes about 3 hours, so you really don't want to be doing that every night. So if possible, make sure that you can agree with the staff that you can have that space for the duration of what you're doing. Next one, John. The prayer activities. Now, because you guys are all newbies, if you go onto the prayer space site, they have what they call their tried and tested top 10. And these are activities that they've done over and over and over and have proved to be ones that young people really engage with and really, really enjoy. And I think for myself, again, only speaking for myself, it was a real assurance for me that I wasn't going to do something that nobody was going to look at, or it was going to not be something that wouldn't give God the glory. So their top 10 are a fantastic pick and mix, if you like. You don't have a set amount of zones that you have to have. There isn't a minimum, there isn't a maximum. You really have to do it depending on your space and on how you feel God is guiding you. Because often in the school, having chatted with senior management or even in church, there may be things that are brought out that you really need to have. For instance, we had our empty chair for the young people to have the opportunity to experience what it's like to grieve. And if anybody wants to talk to me about it, I'll talk about it later on because I don't want to steal Anna's time and there's a lot of things to go through. But it was something that we really felt was needed in the school, and afterwards it was affirmed that it was definitely something that the young people really, really wanted. So it's good to have lots of different zones that encourage children to look up towards God, look out towards others and to the planet, and inside to their inner self, things like self-esteem. And also, we usually have a justice zone, and there are so many injustices in the world that it's very, very easy to choose. But sometimes the school might be involved in a project or a charity, and you can link in with that and create a zone within your prayer space that the children will really, really relate to. When I was doing one in Torrey this year, a group of young children said that they were really chuffed that you didn't have to do too much writing. Because for some kids, it's a struggle just getting through the day, and in secondary school, their 50 minutes are on and on and on and on. So actually interacting with things, seeing things, hearing things, doing things really tick the boxes for a lot of young people. The cost, again, that's a variable, isn't it, Anna? Some of the churches in Aberdeen have kindly donated money to buy items to use for prayer space, and if you want to borrow them, then that's something that you can do easily, because there's 2 sets of kit kept. But if you want to be in contact with me, I will let you know what is in the kits, because that's really quite useful for you to know what other things you need to get. The schools can often give you some consumables like pens and paper and things, but I really think it's a lovely way to bless the school if you're not actually asking them to cover the cost of anything that you're doing. But again, that's something that God will guide you in. Okay, have a floor plan, because when you go into your room, you'll think that you'll remember the way everything is, but guaranteed you won't. Where your PowerPoints are, so if you've got lights and different things that need electricity, you know where to place your zones. You don't want to be shifting things at the last minute. Things that you can't move. There are some classrooms, if you get gifted the shop of a classroom for a week, there may be filing cabinets that will still need access, that kind of thing. It's really, really useful to have a plan and to know. Okay? So, you're recruiting a team now. Usually, it's people who are folks who have a heart for young people. It doesn't have to necessarily be youth workers. The person who is your team leader tends to be. Do you say that's right?
A youth worker?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite often, or a Sunday club leader, or someone who's got time during the day as well.
Yeah. But anybody, who has a heart for young people, especially I've found the sort of grandparent type people who have a little bit more time and can come and help you in these things. The children really, really love to interact with a second granny, granda type person. There's things that you need to be doing. You need to be having your people put through the safeguarding. That's really important. So the PVG takes a bit of time to get processed. So if your folks who are helping are not processed, it's always a good idea to get them put through. And what else? I think that's all I want to say about that one, John. Registering the prayer space. The reason, like I said at the start, the map that showed how many had been on really wasn't correct, because, as I say, if you're not registering with them, they can't say that there is one going on. So please, once you've decided that you want to have one with your date, go on and just register it. There's nothing onerous. It just means that we're around, we can give you a hand if you need some guidance, if you need some encouragement, and also the people in prayer space can guide you towards someone else maybe in your area that you didn't know who has actually done something, and they can give you a hand. Okay? Publicity and preparation. Okay, something that was very, very useful for me the second time I went to the academy was to actually invite the senior team to come and have a look at the prayer space before we started, and just to go through the zones and explain what the different things were to them, and then midweek to have the teachers come and offer them a fine piece, which is always a draw. And they came and had a fine piece and a cup of coffee and just had a look at what the young people had written, and it was very touching to hear them saying, I know who wrote that. And the young people and the teachers have an amazing relationship. I think people often give the teachers a bad name sometimes, and they shouldn't, because teachers, if there's any teachers here, you're amazing guys. And they know their young people, and giving them an insight into things would help build their relationship with the young people in the schools as well.
Excuse me, how does that work with confidentiality then? Do you say to the kids, write anything, it's confidential, or would they just not write it down if they didn't want it to be shared?
That's right. We have Sorry, I'm stealing your time. We have a box that we have, which is a prayer box. And if there's something that is confidential, then it comes to me. But they are told at the start that if it's anything that I feel is something that I need to put further, that I will have to do that. It isn't a secret as such, but no one would ever be asked to put something up other than what they were happy for other people to see.
And most of the time it wouldn't include names.
Yeah.
Unless they choose to put their name or something.
And it's funny because they do. You know, a lot of young people will put a name on it, but yeah, there would never be a breach of confidentiality in that case. Okay. I put some posters up around, using people that were in the media. How would Rooney pray? What would Katy Perry pray? Do you think the Queen would pray? What would the Queen pray? So sort of posters around the school, just to give a little bit of highlighting of what was going on, so that kids were prepared for it. Also, if you get the opportunity to do a little bit of an input to an assembly, it's always useful. If you've got a head teacher or teachers who, as soon as they hear the word prayer, it turns them off, it's actually quite a good way to demystify some of the misconceptions that people have. So that's a good way for doing that. Okay, John? Now, coming to running your prayer space, Anna's going to tell quite a lot about that, so I'm not going to, because I'm really stealing all your time. As you can have gleaned by now, there's not a sort of regular average, this is one stamp for all prayer space. They're different in every different place that you're in, because God has made you, just like the lady was saying this morning. God has made you and given you incredible talents, so He's not going to want you to do a prayer space the same as anybody else. It has to be your thing. So it'll be different wherever you are, and the length of time that you run it may be different, the place that you run it may be different, but there's so many have gone on in loads. Some have gone in tents outside the schools, which I wouldn't recommend in Aberdeen because that would be a complete washout. Even having alternative things, in small spaces and big spaces. And Anna was saying to me that she's had some in the church building. I haven't actually had experience of that yet, but she's actually brought the children into the church building to do a prayer space there. So, the sky's the limit, guys. You don't have to have any kind of worry. As I said, the setting up and taking down takes about 3 hours, so remember and factor that in. Again, everything that's being said is on the Prayer Space website. There's so much great information. It would take you a whole day probably if you wanted to read through it all, but there is lots of good tips and ideas. I won't give you the nitty-gritty because, as I say, I'm talking too long and stealing your time. But there are certain things that you can do. You always want your children coming in as if they're the first lot of people to see this. It's been done just for them, which is quite hard when you've got 7 lots of kids in a day. But you want to do that. You want them to feel that this is somewhere special just for them. So make sure your things are kept up to date and kept nice and tidy. And the thing that drives everybody nuts are the MP3 players that just decide as soon as they come on that they don't want to work. So have alternatives if your MP3s are going to let you down. These kind of things are important. I'm going to shut up now and I'll ask Anna, who's got some amazing things to tell you more. This has really just been a kind of, as I say, whistle stop through all the different things. If you want to speak to me about anything, I'm happy to speak to you, and thank you so much for listening.
You've just reminded me about my MP3s for this corner. Kate is fantastic. She knows everything there is to know about prayer spaces. So, she's a great resource. So make use of her if you're thinking of setting up a prayer space, especially in the school setting. I've done a number of prayer spaces now as well in primary or secondary schools, especially primary is where is my forte perhaps. But I've done along with other people quite a number of secondary school ones now as well. And we've got a couple of schools just close to us that we've built really good relationships over the years. And prayer spaces, they now expect at least 1 prayer space a year, if not 2, perhaps for a younger age of the school, end of the school, and then an older age of the school. But also when we're talking about schools, I want you to know that you can do this in church too. You can do this in your families even as well. And hopefully today you'll be able to glean a lot of the kind of ideas and use them in other places than just the school setting. But do you know, there's nothing bigger than the rewards of doing it in a school setting. Perhaps I can say that. Yeah, I think I can. Yeah. Because you're reaching out to children perhaps who have never actually, you ask them what is prayer at the beginning. What do you think prayer is? Some of them are completely stumped. They've never considered what prayer might be. There's so many kids now who have decided, or their parents have told, there's no such thing as God. You know, they might believe in Santa, but they don't believe in God. You know, there's so many children, that's exactly what it's like with your primary 1, 2, 3, 4s. They believe in Santa still, but their parents have told them there's no such thing as God. But there's something about children, isn't there, in their heart? They want to believe. There's something that just stirs when you start speaking about prayer and how there's many different ways of expressing your heart to God, a God who loves them and cares for them. So it's a joy to do that to kids who have never heard. It's like going to the most unreached corners of the world, isn't it? And telling them for the first time about Jesus. And really, that's what it's like now in some of our schools. They really don't know much at all. So it's a real privilege. Now, I was thinking also, you know, the Bible, from a Christian point of view, we're encouraged to pray continually. I've got a handout, actually, I should pass around. Is it in here? Just a few pointers that I want to look at as I go along. But for our church kids, teaching them, and schools as well, but teaching them to pray in ways that they can do it. If we are to pray continually and every day and in all manners of kinds of prayer, how do we actually do that practically? Because it's not just all about words, is it? It's not all about what we do, we say, it's about how we live our lives and how we are. And some people say, well, it's praying in the Spirit, maybe that's all about talking in tongues. Well, maybe, but actually it's a much bigger picture than that, isn't it? It's about just walking your day in it with the Holy Spirit and teaching our children to sense the presence of God in their lives, and even teaching the children in schools to sense the presence of God in their lives. And often we have kids come in and I don't believe in God, and very much how we work prayer spaces in schools is that's okay. There is absolutely no pressure. We're not telling you have to believe in God. You can join in and interact with these spaces as you want, and it's interpreted by you. So if you get Muslim kids who come in, actually we've never had, in my experience, never had a complaint from any Muslim family about this, ever. Do you know, it's maybe the Christians that are oversensitive about that quite often. They're the ones that really appreciate it. And we say God, generally, in a prayer space situation. I rarely say Jesus, although I might pray myself in the name of Jesus when I'm demonstrating my prayer and my beliefs. But, you know, we let them leave it open to interpretation. And, of course, it's set up from a Christian perspective. So, really, we're introducing them to our God. But, you know, it's open for all faiths as well. Does that make sense? So that we're not discounting somebody. No one is not included. So whether they believe or not. And they can express their emotions, they can express their fears, they can express all sorts of things that don't necessarily mean that they have to believe in God first. But it's amazing how kids come in from a point of view of kind of not being sure, or teachers as well, thinking we're going to put something on them. And those fears are just dispelled and they actually start interacting. And at the end, when you get a bit of feedback, they say, I let my fears go to God today. And that was the one who told you a minute ago they don't believe in God. And I feel so much better. You know, that was the highlight of their day. So many of them said, the letting go of zone is here, we'll tell you about it in a minute. But they've let go of a stone to say that I've got a fear, or I've got someone who really hurt me, and they're letting that go and they're trusting God with it. And so many kids, that's been a really deep and meaningful moment for them. And again, these things can be used in a church setting or Sunday club setting as well as the school, because there's kids in our churches also who have got hurts and fears and worries that they need to let go. I'll just go through a couple of the highlights for me, and then we can watch our little thing in a little minute. So I've written some highlights of prayer spaces in schools and benefits of prayer spaces for the children on here, if I can see it smaller. Just coming into a prayer space, number one is it's a wow factor. Kids walk in the room, they go, oh, wow, and they just can't wait to get their hands on it. Have you ever experienced that when you said, okay, kids, let's pray? You know, they don't often go, wow, when can I start? Do you know? But actually, when they walk into a room that's prepared for them, and I think they even appreciate the work that goes into it, but just the colours and the lighting, they just can't wait to get their hands on stuff. But they actually do the business. They do pray as well. So it's just easy. They engage, and very little direction. We just give them an introduction at the beginning, say, well, you can go to this zone, and this is what you do here, this is what you do here, just very briefly, and off they go. And it's self-directed, it's, you know, bar maybe somebody saying, oh, there's a rather lot of you in that group, why don't you move somewhere else? But really, as long as kids are giving each other space and personal space in the different areas, they're free to go around the different zones as they want to. So it's not like stations where you blow the whistle and they get 5 minutes at each. They can just freely go between the different stations and choose what they want to do and how they want to interact. So it's really easy. You don't have to do much. You just watch and guide, and sometimes there's tears, and you need to be, just gentle on how we approach that. And sometimes there's, some real joy expressed as well. It's giving children a way of praying more than just words. And even I find it quite difficult to pray for, if you timed yourself. Words don't necessarily just flow easily forever. But prayer is a lot more than that. It's something of our expression of our hearts to God, and listening also, not only just talking. So we give opportunities for listening to God quite often in prayer spaces as well. We've got a listening zone at the back there, and a blessing zone, which is really listening and receiving from God more than it is talking to God. So two-way, and I like to explain that to children. So the big wow factor, what else have I got here? I can just pick out. Children, parents and teachers. I've often, like Kate was saying, given opportunity for parents to come and have a look. After school time when they pick up, there's an hour or something that parents can come in and they see all the zones. And we've had great responses from parents who have been bothered to come up and see what their child has done. Often, there's only normally a small number actually do. But those who have come up, and sometimes I've had Muslim families, I particularly think of one Muslim family that came up, and they did everything. The mother went around doing it all. It was just amazing to watch. And they're just very, very positive in their feedback. Teachers as well. I think as soon as they've seen it, all their fears kind of get dispelled, and they're actually very, very supportive. So if you can get into the school once, the likelihood is they'll want you back. Sorry, we can answer.
To cross. So Muslim, would you have that?
Well, I've used that in our church recently. We did a messy church, and that's why that's there, partly because we started something. But I have used a cross before, but as an option, so that they could, I had a blessing zone, and I did have a cross, and I said, well, if you consider, the cross is obviously about Jesus. So if you want, you can kneel there before Jesus. But if you don't want to kneel there, there's also this place to kneel, and maybe a candle or something a bit less. So there's an option for them. Yeah. In a kids' a prayer space that is a Christian space, we can be as overtly Christian as we like. And I'd encourage you to be, because kids need to know for sure, this is what we stand for.
Have you ever done one in a non-mainstream school setting?
No.
I was just wondering if there was any sort of resources or anything to help, obviously.
A lot of the like a private school?
No, as in sort of special education.
Or special needs? Or Okay, I've not personally. Joe, I wonder, you might have. No.
It's a great idea.
It would be brilliant to do.
Just more tactile and just...
Well, that's the brilliant thing about it. It would be super for, because it's all the senses, isn't it? You want to encourage all the sensory experiences, and it's calming. It's a lovely calming atmosphere. So
that any of the things that you're doing could be adapted. Some of the things actually, that have been created for children that probably not with serious physical disabilities, but certainly with minor
it would need
or whatever.
Getting into little spaces and things is often important, but obviously with children with physical needs that might be difficult. For example, they love to crawl in a cave and they're in their safe little space.
But you can still do that for children in a wheelchair. You would just make your space bigger, and someone
could be
I was
different.
just wondering if there was any specific resources that have kind of been done for put together.
I don't know if it is on the Prayer Space website.
There isn't
No.
anything specific that I can think of off the top of my head, but I did notice when I was looking at a variety of things, that it was saying that this was useful and inclusive for children that had minor physical. But that would certainly be something. If you do it, please come back. So we can steal all your ideas.
It's definitely a good idea. I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
There'll be a way to do it.
Yeah.
You just need maybe the right spaces and all these sorts of things. Do you work in a school?
Not currently, but I was a teacher,
Okay, I mean, I've found that kids, normally the teachers, often comment on, they walk in a room, especially we've done it recently where the schools come to our church setting and we had our big kind of sanctuary area, all made into prayer spaces. But they walked in and they said the kids were fighting, they were being so naughty when they left the school, blah, blah, blah. And we've walked in here and they were hit by the atmosphere. Just it's actually God's presence. They don't know that.
Yeah.
But also just the creation of an atmosphere in a place that is really peaceful. And the kids go with, I just feel so relaxed and I feel really peaceful. And they all walk out the door like they're on, they do quite often. They're like they're in space, on a bubble. And you just think, wow, they just came in full of energy and they've gone out with a different energy. It's not that they're flat, they're just like light. And it's really interesting to watch, right from the little ones up to the big ones. Sorry, you were going to ask something.
I was just going to say,
Two of you.
sensory rooms that are set up for autistic kids are very similar.
Yes.
Be very easily adapted.
Yeah, if you've got a base or a sensory area in the school, it would be perfect because you've got the equipment there, the lighting and things quite often, haven't you? Yeah. Yeah. Perfect it would be. I've got one school that's got base, but they've not really got a sensory area, but I would love that if the schools, more and more of them are getting these resources in their school. Sorry, what were you going to ask?
How would you introduce it into a secondary school? I'm a
Secondary teacher.
And also, when during the day, is it in RME lessons or?
Quite often it's been connected. Quite an easy way in is through the RME teacher. Especially if they've got a position of influence at all in the school. Sometimes we've had like Hazelhead or Northfield or something. I think. Well, we've also had heads or deputy heads that are Christians as well, which is really helpful. But often it's through the RME. You're not an RME teacher, no?
My wife is, but I'm not.
Yeah. Often it's a good place, and then it takes the place of the RME lesson quite often. What about you and Tori? Is that the same?
When I did the Peer Space in Tori, it was through the RME head of department asking if we would come and do it. So that was a really good in. But what they did was they had like 5th and 6th years, they were doing that as a qualification. So they were coming in as part of that. We went in to their class and they gave us a 3rd degree, and then the normal RME classes were coming in, but also other classes were invited to come in as well, which was really, really good.
And it's like a period, your normal time, and you can get through the whole school basically quite often in a week. It depends on the size of the school and how they work things, or you can get through the 1st to 3rd years, or something like that. And then primary, it's just every class signs up their time. That's generally how it's worked in primary schools, which is probably simpler. You can ask us any questions at the end. I'm aware of time and I want to let you just have a little look around the zones. Also, just one last thing to say is you might experience some different reactions from children. I said about crying, but actually, do you know, when they come into the presence of God, we've got to remember it's not just the practical things we do around the room, but actually God wants to meet these children, and as well as them going around with, just full of, we know it's God's peace touching their lives. Last prayer space I had weeping. They walked in the room. I'm doing the introduction. I'm saying, "Good afternoon, children. It's so good to have you. Excited to be here." And I looked at them, and some of them were welling up their eyes, and I'm like, and we've got lots of exciting zones for you to do. Who can tell me what they think prayer is? And there's some more starting to cry, and they're starting to put hands around each other's shoulders. And and you just don't know. Coming into the presence of God, suddenly their hearts are open, and I probably didn't respond the best way in that, because they want to know what's happening. The kids, they're feeling something, and even the teachers actually were crying a lot. Class after class, this kept happening. I'm like, oh my goodness, the parents are all going to be in, they're all going home with red eyes, But it wasn't hysteria, it was just a gentle, it was something really special, and we never got any comeback or problems, thank you Lord. But just be ready, how to explain to children that actually maybe you're just sensing God's presence, maybe God's just coming close to you. You don't have to say, well, that's the presence of God you're feeling, but just maybe that's what it's like to be close to God, and just to give them an explanation. We've got some zones here, we've got the empty chair, and then I found that they were often drawn to the empty chair because they were trying to find out, why am I crying? I must be sad about someone I've lost, so they would go there. But actually they just were experiencing what it's like to come close to God, and just some gentle explanation of that can be helpful. Let me run around the zones. We've got letting go in here, which has got stone which we use, and they let go. They prayerfully let go. I think it's got MP3 player in there. And at the back we've got, so you listen to the MP3, it guides you through. The blessing zone's where the cross is, and you can just kneel down. We often tell them, kneel down, kind of pray and listen to the MP3 and just receive a prayer of blessing. This is an example from the school, one of the schools that we've used. At the back we've got a listening to God zone, 4 steps to listening to God. You can read what it says, and you just take a card or a bit of paper and you listen to what you feel God might be saying. And we always tell the kids, God always has good words to say about you, just to be sure that they don't write anything, you know. So always has good words to say about you. So you can do that there, and we always encourage them to take that home. It's really nice if they do something that's been quite meaningful for them. They can put it in their pocket, and some of them really treasure some of the things that they've actually done during a prayer space. And the empty chair is remembering people you've lost, or people you miss, or even pets. I had one boy come to me once and says, I've lost 100 people in my family. And I'm thinking, 100 people in your family? That's amazing. I was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. 99 of them were goldfish. And I was like, oh, phew. Another one was a great granny or someone he'd never actually met, you know. But so we just invite you now. We'll put some music on, and you can just go explore some of the areas. And we put things on the wall.